Hello and welcome back to my channel. The mug on your screen is Racing for Home Jacey. Thank you for being here with me and for hanging in through another grooming session. So Racing for Home Jacey is the daughter of our Soul Oars, Emma Lee. Emma Lee was in the previous video. That's linked below, of course, if you want to go see it. Jacey is a goat who is an improvement generationally, but still not a show goat. And we've got a couple of things going on with Jacey, right? So similar to Emma has a coarse coat. Jacey's coat is much finer and silkier, but it's still a little coarse. Her texture is still not 100% correct. So generally, generational improvement, absolutely. Ready for the show ring? No. Jacey's coat is also a bit shorter in the length, so it didn't quite hit the ground the way it needed to be. She's got a much fuller beard, just like her mama, but she's got no bangs, just like her mama, and she's got better cheek muffs, but still not enough. So from a show perspective, not it. Now, Jacey was interesting. She was born early on in my farm journey, and she was born in the first year that I planned to keep a goat. And I had actually already determined that I was keeping Jezebel. So Jezebel had been born on the farm, and she was my keeper doe for the year. So Jacey was sold. She was sold and actually named by her buyer. This was back when I was a small time. I really didn't have a reputation in the breed yet. I hadn't established myself. I wasn't, winning in the show ring or anything else. I was still learning. So all of my goats were sold as, essentially pets, or recognizing that if they were going to go into a breeding program, they needed improvements. This goat was sold before she was born. When she was born and we registered her, we, at that time, were allowing our buyers to pick the names they wanted them registered as, with the stipulation that it needed to be a name that fit with the tattoo letter of the year, so it fit with our naming convention. So this year it had to be a J, Jezebel, Jacey. So Jacey was named by her buyer. And just as Jacey reached the age where she was supposed to go home, things did not work out for her buyer, and she was suddenly without a home. And as I mentioned, again, kind of at that point, I did not have the presence in the marketplace, the reputation, really not even, enough presence online to show up in Google searches or anything else, right? All that came later, as I built my brand, as I built my reputation, and as people understood the principles and philosophies that I live into. I know nobody likes to be combed back there. It's hard. I wouldn't want to be combed back there either. She's dancing because nobody likes to be combed back by their tush and their udder. It's sensitive areas. I don't blame them, but we've got to do it. So at any rate, so I didn't have a ready-made market for a goat that had been weaned, was just, it's kind of like puppies, right? Just nearing the point of being a little too old for people who want babies, not old enough for people who want breeding stock. So she inadvertently ended up staying here. And this is another one of those, destiny probably drove some of my fortune. Because although Jacey is not a show goat by any means, she was another well-conformed goat. She's a little bit, thin again now because she's older. Not quite as old as Emma, but she's older. And she's, starting to thin out a bit on her coat, etc. But anyway, so she was not a show prospect. although I dragged her to a bunch of shows because, you know, I didn't have any other goats to show and I was learning. So she gave me an opportunity to get a lot of valuable feedback. And again, inadvertently be able to compare her to the doe that I chose to keep, Jezebel, who did perform well in the ring, who was a show prospect, who had that, you're stepping on my finger, who had that textured coat that we needed, right? The silk. So I had a really good opportunity to take pictures of them side by side, to get the judges' feedback, to understand other breeders' thoughts on what I could do with my lines, where I should go. And Jacey is just the absolute sweetest goat. She has a very similar personality to her mom. She is not a midwife. She is not interested in helping other goats clean up their babies and whatnot. That unfortunately is limited to Emma only. But she is certainly somebody who I absolutely love having in my herd and would not want to be without. She has marbled blue eyes, which at the time I had no idea that that was a thing. That means her eyes are part brown, part blue. Blue is a dominant gene. Blue eyes are a dominant gene in the goat world. So somewhere in her background, she has one gene or a partial gene to express a little bit of that blue. So that was the first introduction of blue eyes into my herd. Nobody really knows where it came from, right? Her breeder doesn't retain that kind of knowledge. It's just, she's just too large of an operation to remember, you know, where the blue gene may have come from, and it really doesn't matter. But that was kind of cool. And again, like from a kismet perspective, it accelerated my learning curve, even though it was not a plan to have her as a part of my farm. I'm so glad I did, though. So the other things that, you know, Jacey gave us and blessed us with are babies. Jacey is an amazing mom and an amazing kidder. She kids naturally without help. She kids quickly. She kids on time. She settles after one exposure with the buck. She's just, I mean, she's absolutely wonderful, right? So she does get bred, or has been bred, quite a few times over the years. She's about to be retired. I think she's got one more year in her, and then she's going to be retired. And that's a bit disappointing because I really love her babies. I have kept some of her babies, and wait till you see the generational improvement there. But we'll get there. I'm going to move the muck bucket, so a little bit of noise. Sorry. I keep that muck bucket there so I can collect all that cashmere, make sure it's not blowing all over the place in the barn, etc. So anyway, so Jacey added a lot to me personally as one of my learning goats. She added a lot to my line in terms of her genetic contributions, and she gave a ton of people beautiful babies and pets. She's tap dancing a little now because the healer puppy just ran through. That happens. So Jacey has kidded with triplets twice. She primarily kids with singles or twins. Twins are my ideal. This last year, she did kid with triplets, so my expectation is next year she'll probably kid with a single. That tends to be how she rolls. If she has multiples, the next year she has singles, and I think that's her body doing her thing. She's tap dancing. I'm not hurting her. She just doesn't like me back here for two reasons. One is she recently weaned her kids from this year, so her udder is still sensitive as she dries up. And there's, you know, it's back there, right? And two is, of course, nobody likes to have their butt touched. But I have to touch it in order to groom all the parts. So that's what we're doing, even though she doesn't love it. And yes, she's tap dancing, but I promise you I'm not hurting her in any way, shape, or form. That is not the game plan. She just doesn't want to be touched back there because she's extra sensitive right now, and you would be too. So let's see. Like I said, Jacey was the accidental keeper that gave me so much. I cannot thank her enough for that. I'm going to be very sad when I retire her from our breeding program. It's just not good for her body to go longer than that. That's my opinion. There are people that will breed their goats until they're 11, 12, 13, as long as they can. I just won't do that. Breeding Emma at 9, her mom, was a one-time unusual thing. It was probably not the best decision I could have made, but it's a decision I made at the time. And it's not a decision that I will make again. So Jacey will be out of breeding, even if she wants to be breeding, by the end of, by this time next year, right? So one more year for her and she's done. What I'm combing out back here, I don't know if you can see it, is just a whole lot of caked on mud from the rain we had the last several weeks. They obviously lay down. Some of the goats collect more mud than others. She has collected quite a bit. It's dried and caked, so it's a little fun to deal with. And she doesn't like it any more than I do. But we're almost done. And at the end of the day, it needs to come off. So what else can I tell you about Jacey before we finish up? Not a whole lot. I mean, she's not perfect. She's not a show goat. She's went into the ring. She never won prizes. She won a lot of conversation with judges and other breeders on how she shouldn't be in the ring and why. And I was perfectly fine with that, right? I was new. I was learning. And if you're following the whole tattoo letter thing, right, she's a J. So you can, and this last year was a T year. So you can kind of do the math on, how long it's been, right? She hasn't been in a ring for a very long time. And by the way, we're all done with the mud back there. Yay. So check for ticks. Goats aren't really susceptible to ticks, but I always take a look anyway. Sometimes when ticks are desperate, they will go to species they don't necessarily want to until they can find a species that they really want to be on. And we do have deer in the pastures and deer on the farm, so, I always check that. She's about done. Once the spring cleanup is done, and you've seen that spring cleanup, especially with the boys and with some of the earlier girls that I did, that spring cleanup is the hardest groom. After that, the grooms become quite easy. It's maintenance. It's a bit of, time with the goat, time to lay hands on the goat. The other thing I didn't mention or haven't mentioned, and here's an interesting thing. The goats pretty much always poop on the stand. That's what they do. Goats poop all the time, but they pretty much always poop on the stand. And I don't think you've caught that on camera yet, and certainly that wasn't ever the plan to catch it on camera. But when they do poop on the stand, it gives me an opportunity to collect that poop. It's clean. It's not on the floor. It hasn't been contaminated. I collect that poop and I use that poop to run stool samples. So I got a couple of stool samples, and what I'll be doing when I get back to the house is pulling out the microscope, preparing stool samples, and doing some fecal testing just to check in and make sure that nobody has parasites. This is the time of the year where parasites can crop up. We've done their health check with their vet. We don't believe that there's any. Their body condition doesn't show that there's any. But, if I have the opportunity to get a fresh sample of poop that's clean and not contaminated, I'm going to grab it. So I'm going to head back to the house and do some fecal samples and play with my microscope and be all sciencey. I hope you enjoyed meeting Jacey. Love her to death. Can't wait to showcase her progeny. Wait till you see. Again, it's just amazing how the generations quickly improve. But that's it. Really would appreciate if you'd leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Every minute you watch, every comment you make makes a difference for this teeny tiny channel, and it's appreciated. You are seen, you are noticed, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you're having a fabulous day wherever you are in this world, and I will talk to you at the next one. Bye for now.